I just get really hyped up because it's like, oh my goodness, other people are here who love Jesus, and I get to walk alongside them.
Wichita, it's the biggest city in Kansas, but nobody knows about it. But it's a vibe. So how how did moving all the way over to Wichita impact you, or make that decision harder or easier or anything?
Just from experience being in Navigators, I've seen how welcoming you are to new freshmen and just even us who are sophomores and juniors and seniors, just welcoming into your home and your car. It's just got to get that dash time in, as we've talked about.
Hey guys, welcome back to One Flock, One Shepherd's Voice. I'm Charlotte.
And I'm Brianna.
And today we have Eva Haub here with us.
Hello, everybody.
Eva is on staff with our Navigators campus ministry here at Wichita State, so I'm just going to let her introduce herself a little bit about who she is and what she does with the Navs here.
Yeah, so like Charlotte and Bree said, I am on staff with the Navigators at Wichita State University. I'm currently in my second year of staff here, and I do a little bit of everything. A main role of my job is to work specifically with the women's side of ministry. So what that looks like is I meet with and help train the women student laborers, but I also lead a C group with Charlotte, and I help her and I help the women in our group to kind of establish their faith and develop what it means to be a godly woman. I also help out a little bit behind the scenes, so I help plan out some of the large group Navigators events. So on Thursdays, I help run NavNight, and I help facilitate that time a little bit. And then I also do some trainings for our student laborers as they think about what it means to make disciples on the college campus. Personally, though, a little bit about me. I grew up outside of a small town in Iowa, have 3 siblings, 2 parents, 2 dogs. I like the color yellow. I'm pretty loud as an individual. It's kind of fun, kind of cute, kind of fun.
All very true things. What is your favorite thing about being on staff? What keeps you going?
I would honestly have to say the interactions that I get to have with the women here on campus. So there will be days where if I go the entire day without seeing somebody, it's not good for my spirit. I get to the end of the day and I'm like, wow, absolutely nothing happened because I did not see a single other person. But then if at the end of the day I see a student or somebody in my C group or someone else on staff, I just get really hyped up because it's like, oh my goodness, other people are here who love Jesus and I get to walk alongside them. So I think that the thing that I love most about my job is just getting to interact with students and to talk about Jesus with them.
That's so awesome. So, when you were younger, did you ever think that you would be on staff helping people grow in their relationship with Christ and lead younger girls?
Yeah. So I grew up as a Christian. I came to know Jesus at a pretty young age because both of my parents are pretty strong believers. So I've always had a nice foundation for who Jesus is and what that means for my life. But if you would have asked me up until my senior year of college, I was absolutely dedicated to being a high school English teacher. I studied English education until my last semester of college, and I really was for certain that God designed me and created me to be an English teacher at a public school in Iowa. I had it all lined up, and I was ready to go. But then God really made his voice known my senior year, and he was like, Eva, I really want you to go on staff with the Navigators. And at first I was like, absolutely not, God. I am going to be an English teacher. We've planned this out. You've been telling me this my entire life. Why would I do anything else? But he was persistent, luckily, and the people around me were persistent in leading me and guiding me where he wanted me to go. And then I ended up making the decision to be on staff somewhere in the last year, in my senior year. And then I changed my major from English education to English and really fully committed to coming on staff with the Navigators.
Wow, that's awesome. You spent so much time working towards a goal, and then not only did God say, hey, never mind, I've actually got something better planned, but then you moved all the way over to Wichita, to a place you probably had never heard of.
No.
Yeah, Wichita. It's the biggest city in Kansas, but nobody knows about it.
Yeah.
But it's a vibe. So, how did moving all the way over to Wichita, what was that like leaving your family, and how did that impact you, or make that decision harder or easier or anything?
Yeah. So, like I said, at first I wasn't really excited and I was quite nervous. But Mark and Annie Scafidi, who are the campus directors at Wichita State, they were both staff at the college that I went to in Cedar Falls, Iowa, and they were really like adamant, but in the best and most like gracious way, that I come to Wichita with them. They were really clear. They let me know that they wanted me to come with them. And I could just really see that God was tugging on their heart to go to Wichita. And as I got deeper and deeper into actually wanting to be on staff, it stopped being, oh, I want to go to Wichita with Mark and Annie. And it started to be, I want to be on staff with the Navigators because I think the college campus needs to hear God's voice. So I don't really know when the switch was, but I really started to feel the tug towards Wichita on my own terms. Like, it was definitely that I had a heart to come to Wichita. My family was not the most pleased. They wanted me to stay in Iowa, but they also like saw my passion for Wichita, and they were like, Eva, we are not going to stand in God's way. Like, we are really excited to see you work on the college campus. So it's great to have them as like a support system. And it's great to have Mark and Annie as a constant where I get to watch them glorify God with their lives. And I'm just really thankful to still be learning from them after college like has been over for me for now a year.
That's so awesome. It's cool that you had that connection with Mark and Annie and that they kind of brought you along on their journey, but you also got to explore that for yourself. Yeah. So since you went through a program with the Navigators and you were a student in the Navigators, what are some differences or similarities between Iowa Navigators and then ones here in Wichita? Like, what are things that you remember from being in Iowa that you were like, ooh, I need to bring this and teach this back here in Wichita?
Yeah. So when I think about the Navigators, the definition that I like really use to describe Navs is just intentionality. Because I remember when I was a freshman, when I moved in, all of my friends, like, well, a few of my friends, the friends I knew going into college, were like, Eva, you should do Navs. I think you would really enjoy it. And then when I moved in, first day of freshman year, a girl, her name's Talia, helped me move into my dorm, and she noticed that I was wearing a Christian t-shirt, and she asked me a few questions, invited me to the Navigators. And I was like, actually, I'm really interested. I want to join the Navigators because a friend of mine is in it. So Talia took that in stride, and after I had gotten all moved in, she left, and I was like, okay, I might not ever see that girl again. A couple hours later, she came back to my room with all of the Bible study leaders for my building in tow. They knocked on my door, and she just wanted to introduce me to all of them. So my first experience was with the Navigators was to see their intentionality and their desire to know me as a person. And when I came on staff and decided to move to Wichita, my desire was to bring that same level of intentionality to WSU's campus. So as I'm thinking about how to engage with the women here at Wichita State, I really want it to be just an atmosphere of intentionality, where I want us to be really caring for each other's hearts. And I think that that would just be like the most Navigators thing, in my opinion, is just that mindset of caring for one another really intentionally.
I would definitely agree with that. I think that's one of my favorite things about the Navigators is the intentionality that everybody on our staff has, everybody on our student leader team has, and just this community that we've created, like just being really intentional with each other, meeting together, and just making sure that we're all being encouraged and uplifted and being taught how to read the Bible or witness to people or disciple other people and do all these things that like we're not really sure how to do. So this Thursday, you're speaking at NavNight. You're going to get to teach people, run a little workshop. I'm very excited. What are you talking about this Thursday?
Yeah, so this semester, we've been going through the book of Luke in our C groups, our community groups, and we've been kind of following the same structure of the Bible study at NavNights. So this week, we are hitting on the theme of new mission and how Jesus has set in place a new type of lifestyle for people who profess to follow him. So I get to talk a little bit about what it has been like in the Bible for people to leave their old lives behind and follow the new mission that Jesus instilled. And then I also get to talk a little bit about, in my own life, how I've seen Jesus' new mission fulfilled in my life as well.
That's so awesome. I'm excited to hear more about it. Not to tease more in your speech next week, but what would be something that you would say would be most important to tell college students? Like whether they're already walking with God or they're just starting that out or they haven't even really experienced that, but they just want to learn more. What would be something that you would say is important?
I would say what's super important for college students to know, whether they are just curious about Jesus, if they don't know anything about him, or if they've been walking with him for their entire lives, is just how important it is to have a community of people around you who know and love him deeply. I know how deeply I was impacted by that in college. And I also think about it like to think about my topic a little bit more as well. If we have a mission, if we have a job, I personally believe that every one person job is automatically better as a two-person job. I just think that doing things alone is not really the way. And I think it's so much more enjoyable if you've got somebody on your side. So as I think about like this new mission that Jesus has called us to go out into the world and to proclaim who he is and how people's lives can be transformed by him, I really think, okay, I don't want to do that alone. Like I lead a community group with Charlotte because I don't want to lead a community group by myself. That's a lot of pressure and it's just not fun. Or I also think like we have a whole student laborers team here at WSU. And that's because none of us want to labor on our own, because labor on your own is just exhausting. So as I think about like this new mission and as I think about what college students need, I really just think about somebody that they can have walk alongside them through every aspect of life. I think we see a pretty clear biblical example that that's what Jesus expects us to do. Because like in First Thessalonians, it says that Paul wasn't just willing to share the gospel with people, but after he shared the gospel with people, he also shared his entire life with them. And I think that that's just something that I would really encourage college students to lean into a little bit more in their day-to-day lives.
I know I've just from experience being in Navigators, I've seen how welcoming you are to new freshmen and just even us who are sophomores and juniors and seniors, just welcoming into your home and your car, just got to get that dash time in as we've talked about. And I've just been able to see that, and it's just really cool to hear you talk about that, but also see it within your life. So one way that we love to close out our podcast and just kind of hear the way you would share the gospel and how that's important to you. So how would you share the gospel if someone asked you, and how has it impacted your life?
Yeah, I'm actually going to answer that question backwards. Okay. So the gospel is important in my life because I see the absolute need for it. Like I recognize that there are two options when it comes down to it. There's with Jesus and there's apart from Jesus. And I don't want to see anybody apart from Jesus. So I think it's not only comforting to be with Jesus, but it's an absolute need. And I think like that's what it means to me, is just that I get to experience dependence on Jesus in ways that is beyond anything that I could ever accomplish on my own. So when I actually get down to the roots of what the gospel is, I would say it's the fact that God created a perfect world, that he said, let there be light, and there was light. He said, let the waters separate, and the waters separated. He said, okay, let there be animals of all kinds, and there were animals of all kinds. And then he created people. And after a while, people decided that they didn't want to love and desire God anymore, but they wanted to desire things that they could grasp in their own two hands. And they turned aside from God. And God had to send them away from him. So just like he brought them into existence, because they looked away from him, he had to do the heartbreaking thing of kicking them away from his presence. And when he did that, that set the standard for all humanity. So people since that moment have been separated from God. And there's evidence over and over of the world's brokenness. I don't think I really have to go into that the world is broken, because we can look around and recognize, yeah, this world is not great. But the hope is the fact that God looks down at his world and he said, I can do something because this is my world. So he sent Jesus, and Jesus, who is God, came to this earth, and he lived a perfect life that none of us could ever live. And he died a death on the cross. And with his death, he took on sin and became sin, so that when he was killed, all of sin was killed with him. And they came back from the dead, and he left his people with a mission, which is what we're going to talk about on Thursday. He left his people with a mission to proclaim his good news of hope for new life in him to the ends of the earth for the rest of their lives. And that has been passed down to us from the moment that Jesus returned to heaven. And the great news is that he offers us the invitation to live in his kingdom with him. So even though we've been separated from him, he's given us the hope to be returned to his side. And he's promising that one day he's going to come back and he is going to make the entire world new so that there will be no more brokenness. And I don't know about you guys, but no more brokenness sounds pretty epic. So I think that's the gospel. And what it means to me is dependence and need.
Well, thank you so much for sharing about yourself, your coming to Christ, and then coming to Wichita State to be on staff with the Navigators.
For sure.
I know that you've definitely made an impact in a lot of people's lives, especially my own, but also being able to see you like interact with all of the freshmen, like you're making a really big impact with all of them too, and I'm sure that they would say the same thing.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Low key, a lot of people are going to listen to this podcast just because of you, Eva. Like, I feel like this is going to have a lot of listeners.
Yes.
So thank you for being here, and I'm super stoked to hear you talk.
Yes,
on
we
Thursday.
can't wait
So
for it.
epic. I'm so excited to talk. Yay.
Well, thank you guys for listening today, and we can't wait to catch you in the next episode. We'll see you later.